today's world, we're seeing a grand transition from what we used to think of as normal into a new age of technology and AI-driven economies that was originally only conceivable in science fiction novels. I'll forewarn you and say that some of the contents of this video may come off as political, though let me assure you, there is no right or left in the future, as I will explain. And the politicians of today, I believe, will soon be done away with in favor of a new system, but more on that later. Many that have followed me on Twitter and YouTube know I called the $4,000 bottom in 2018. In April of 2021, I not only called the peak of the market, but later that day, I explained I expected a second peak to come, which it did. I got into the blockchain space in 2017, and a broken watch is right twice a day. Well, I've got one up on that broken watch, so take that as you will. I'm an observer of all things, not prone to political sides or ideological leanings. I'm just a man that seeks truth and prosperity for all. Take all of that as you will. I'm always right, sometimes. I will be making a series of predictions from here, and that you may or may not subscribe to or believe to be possible. However, I ask that you not take my words as gospel, but that you consider them deeply to form your own projections and try to connect the dots you believe matter and fill in the rest with your own beliefs as they make the most sense to you. I would also like to point out that I have good friends of all walks of life. I have straight friends, gay friends, and family, non-binary friends, and even trans friends. I care nothing about your preferences behind closed doors, nor your desire to be anything that makes you feel complete, secure, and comfortable in your own skin. I adore my wife of 12 years, and I love the complexities of women. Remember, I am just an observer of all things, and the content herein is merely an opinion that could change an hour after I publish this. Opinions in truth-seeking evolve as more is discovered, witnessed, and learned, and thus never a concrete assessment. If you disagree with anything I say, I'm happy to discuss your opinion in the comments below openly. Just keep it friendly and respectful. Through opposing views, we begin to share perspectives that educate and enlighten others. This is what I love. So let's begin. As we continue to live our lives in the state of panic and fear imposed by those that dictate everything we see and hear from day to day, all either opting for further control and or revenue streams to strengthen their positions in the world, we are noticing many things take shape in front of our very eyes. We see big tech acting as our own echo chambers as the AI-driven algorithms learn what we think, are interested in, and or believe, and continue shelling out streams of content that will either further our beliefs, keep opposing perspectives away from us, trigger us with content we are seemingly opposed to, or simply entertain us in efforts to keep our attention for the next message while raking in ad dollars depending on the platform and its goals. This is effectively putting each of us in our own personal bubble that we become semi-addicted to, constantly searching for validation in ourselves while trying to squash our ever-growing state of imposed insecurities and anxieties. Today, we see the confusion associated with what a woman is, what a man is. Anyone can be anything by simply committing to the idea, and others are expected to adopt the same perception of others or be labeled in a negative context. We are being taught to hate men, the builders of the world, while mentally and emotionally castrating them in favor of female dominance, all while a woman can be a man, an animal, or nothing at all. The notion of a family is being broken up as members of families are being divided and relabeled as birthing people to create yet further disconnect between its members. Is it any wonder why custody courts throughout the entire country not only favor women in the vast majority of cases, but also ultimately bleed men dry of their financial assets in the name of children? These laws were helpful at a time when women didn't work and simply stayed home taking care of the family and the home, and if the couple split apart, would often be left with no way to provide for herself or the children. This simply isn't the case any longer, and the system continues driving men away from the institution of marriage altogether. A newly married couple of just a year, seemingly happy, only to find that the woman gets bored once more or simply loses interest, only to find a new man, leaves the husband, and the courts award half of what the husband has worked his entire life towards. Now the husband is paying for her way of life that her new man enjoys, while the husband is bled out over time. Add children to the mix and you have a division of assets, alimony, and now child support on top of it. I know men that went from large, comfortable homes down to studio apartments due to this type of situation, all because the wife decided to cheat. Where else can one be rewarded for such despicable actions? This isn't the fault of women, as it's the system in place they take advantage of. If the system were reversed, men would likely enjoy the same benefits, and many would, of course, abuse it as well. I'm not picking on women, but the system established to create a fear of unity. The sanctity of marriage and the magic within such a bond has been reduced to a business deal that could go wrong at any time, with the cost of it all falling on men. Where is the equality in any of that? Crime is on the rise, as are prices for everything else, while options to curb such crime is being limited more and more. The list of chaos-creating methods only continue to have grown since 2020, but why? Is this the natural progression of a society that reaches a point in its evolution and growth? Once the men have built a sustainable physical world, we subject them to constant hate, neglect, and even financial ruin in efforts to push them into their own personal bubbles. Is this why gaming has become such an escape for all men of all ages? Its steady stream of challenge versus reward, growth versus obstacles that feeds a man's desire to make progress without all of the trappings of real-world issues. Women no longer needing men, as they have already built a world in which women can thrive on their own and thus are no longer needed. So we demonize the very nature that empowered the world to exist as it is today. Why does this seem to be the case? This is one aspect of the world changing, and I believe ultimately pushing us into the future of technology. The natural course of all of the above is driving people into developing the new world that is safer, cleaner, and anything is possible, all while those in power can more effectively control the world, and that new world is the metaverse. Some people believe the metaverse to simply be a video game whereby people can log in with a headset or appear to be in a new world. They believe that the recent trend of monotonous play-to-earn games labeled as metaverse is, well, a metaverse. Today, that is true, but like a baby waddling around in diapers today, that toddler will one day become a grown adult capable of amazing things, and how the world is capable of handling and pushing this new world forward is being laid out right now in various ways. As men and women are being pushed towards this new world through gaming, they will also become those that further build and expand it over time, as a pregnant woman in her nesting phase, preparing for the future of those to come after her. I believe we are in an in-between state where we're leaving one era and entering another. Men have built the old world, which the rest of us now enjoy, and are seemingly no longer needed. And thus, down in the totem pole is nothing more than one of 10,000 Tinder hookup options to be plucked like a lobster on dinner day. However, one thing women seek out most in the world is security, and once more, men and women who learn to navigate, build, and earn within this new digital world will once again rise in relevance over the more alpha archetype that was responsible for building the world of today. The Omegas. As we have seen in the growth of the blockchain space cycle after cycle, we are seeing the technological advancements grow and expand, but also the use cases. What started as a P2P decentralized blockchain for exchanging value from point A to point B instantly with little fees in a trustless environment, we now see all aspects of that technology growing from throughput, speed, smart contracts, interoperability, and much more. Moving from Bitcoin to Ethereum and now Cardano. We are seeing the greatest minds in the space building new platforms for international finance, trade, inventory, medicine, and other myriad of other opportunities take form. By 2030, I believe that all traditional stocks will be tokenized, either as digital tokens or NFTs. These will likely be traded on ADA0 like that of XRP, and regulated in the same ways as today, though the markets for these will be open to speculators on a global scale on 24/7 markets, as opposed to today's limited market opens and closes. CBDCs will be introduced and adopted, while the exchanges are regulated to utilize them as the new stable coins, and the rest are pushed out of the market. No government likes to have their fiat currency undermined, especially stable coins with shady backings, if any at all, or algorithmic methods for maintaining stability. With the purpose of stablecoins being used to get in and out of crypto positions, CBDCs will enable governments to know exactly what positions you're trading in and out of for tax purposes and other reasons. This will likely happen much sooner than 2030. The metaverse as we think of it today will be vastly different by 2030, and companies like Meta know this. Think of the popularity of procedurally based games today, the never-ending adventures that are rebuilt on the fly with every new playthrough. Now, consider AI platforms such as DALL-E 2, Midjourney, and others that empower the public to type in text prompts to create a series of base images representing those commands to be further expanded upon with new variations, up-rendered in higher quality versions until that perfect picture of whatever you had in your mind is created in mere minutes. Similar platforms are starting to pop up for music and even videos. Now, consider Elon Musk's Neuralink, a chip implanted into the skull and connected to the brain that will be capable of storing memories and thoughts, aiding in access to content, calculations, and more. Then consider decentralized storage platforms like SIA, Filecoin, and others capable of storing a near endless amount of data in an encrypted P2P system that continues to grow with adoption. Put all this together and what do you have? You end up with an endlessly growing metaverse that people will live in, work in, and ultimately generate themselves through thought, as what you believe and think will be rendered in real time before your very eyes. If you want to live as a man, a woman, a cat, or an android, you will, and nobody will think anything of it. That will be the reality of the day, and we are heading there right now. All of it will be driven by blockchain technology, storage, and AI, as impulses to the brain trigger emotional and physical responses to the world. You will look and feel as real as you sitting at your computer watching this video. Ordo ab chaos, or order from chaos. That is what I believe the metaverse will be. Will the metaverse be what we are all pushed into and the place we all eagerly escape to, as we've all been programmed to adopt the mindset that will make living in the metaverse an easier transition? In a world focused on the idea of climate change and the methods which it continues to grow worse in the eyes of those that support the idea, what better way to push the world into an era of consolidation than through introducing not only a new way of digital life where all things are possible, all vices explored safely, and all growth retained, but the potential to live forever. In that sense, we don't need dense populations of people, because in this world, nobody dies. Your memories, thoughts, feelings, all recorded and retained until the old body is replaced with a new cloned form. The World Economic Forum has expressed and shown their vision of 3D printed hearts and other bodily organs, and in time, I believe entire bodies will be created so that the wealthy, powerful, and celebrities will continue to live on forever as the rest of us work within the metaverse to help the few maintain their positions, while few of us achieve things that merit a rising station in the virtual life, much like the way the real world is now. As politics continues to further divide countries the world over, as ideologues push a series of narratives adopted by some and disregarded by others, a reversal in ideals has been taking place, as one of the rebellious and against the machine individuals have turned into an extension of the very machine they once opposed. The more conservative elements of society are now considered the rebels, the bad people, and those thwarting the efforts to make the world a safer and more democratic place. Without getting into the details of the how and why of certain aspects of this, I will say that I believe our political system as a whole will eventually find itself replaced entirely, as the public on both sides continue losing faith in the systems of today, and whether it be through civil war or other methods, the public will eventually demand a change, and something to the effect of a technocracy will be born. A system by which a ruling elite group of all industries will work together to make decisions to benefit the growth, safety, and progress of society without the corruption-laden system of politics we have today. Some could say we already have a similar system in place while giving the illusion of a republic. Whether or not this is a good or bad thing is up in the air, but I believe a system change is in our future, and I believe this too will happen before 2030. I believe the peak of the next crypto bull market will conclude around 2026, with a Bitcoin over $250,000, and with that, the altcoin market may not flourish the way we think it should based on previous cycles. As regulations continue formulating themselves, I believe some aspects of the DeFi and stablecoin markets will be regulated to the point that only those on Wall Street with known and proven relationships with regulators will be able to effectively operate DeFi platforms. DeFi applications will, I'm sure, be developed in the not-so-distant future with compliance and regulation in mind as these things continue to shape up. Layer 1 blockchains such as Ethereum, Cardano, and some others will likely rise substantially as their use case continues to grow. Ethereum, I believe, will take a backseat to several other projects, including Cardano, as the recent merge to Ethereum 2.0 has opened new issues, such as censorship capabilities and other issues, in their effort to convert into a proof-of-stake blockchain like Cardano. As regulations kick many projects built by anonymous teams and similar more shady backstories in the pants, the funds that would typically be going into these will ultimately end up in the more accepted layer 1s that have proven certain metrics in the eyes of regulators as well as the public. In-kind regulations mean more money entering the blockchain markets altogether, as new investment vehicles will launch and bigger portions of bigger investors' portfolios will enter the space, pushing up the top projects that much higher in the market cap. The cream will rise to the top, and the cream will consist of projects that offer global use cases adopted by governments, big tech, big farm, and others. As with the transition of everything to digital currencies and tokens takes place, companies will look for new ways to generate their steady flow of incoming fees. Cardano, in my opinion, will likely hit a high of between $6.33 to somewhere around $13, depending on how everything else in the market plays out. Ethereum will likely end up somewhere between $6,500 and $9,000. With over $8 billion in ADA currently being staked to nodes in this bear market, limiting the supply of tokens available to the public, newcomers to the space are either recovering from the buy the top, sell at a loss, or they are holding long term because they have educated themselves since 2017 and 2018, or they simply haven't entered the markets at all yet, waiting for a confirmed bottom before entry. When these folks begin to buy back in and accumulate, the market capitalization will likely rise much faster than it has in previous cycles, as Cardano has done nothing but disprove the false narratives put forth by competing blockchains, but further expanded on its offerings, with Hydra being the final nail in the coffin of most other blockchain projects. Due to its total supply, Cardano will always be within reach of the majority of speculators in the retail markets over other projects that will likely end up somewhere in the four figures. Much like we saw ICOs lay the foundation for blockchain crowdfunding of projects in the 2017 bull market, NFTs are laying out the foundation for a new way of doing business for everyone anywhere on the globe. While NFTs began as JPEG images of cartoons, rocks, and other art, their use cases have been slowly growing much wider, as real-world real estate is now starting to be tokenized as NFTs and made available to purchase by anyone, anywhere in the world. REITs of today will ultimately become fractionalized NFT collections with a built-in return on investment to the wallets holding those NFTs. All of this will be highly regulated in time as part of the new digital economy on a global scale. Real estate within metaverses such as Sandbox, Cornucopias, and others are fetching high dollars as speculators buy at mint and either hold long-term waiting for these new worlds to be created around them, by which they plan to either build their own houses and games and other interesting virtual spaces, or buyers are just squatting on these lands like .com domain squatters, not looking to build anything, but rather sell the lands when the prices and demand for them have reached a place that inspires them to sell at a significant profit. What's more, with the idea of you'll own nothing and be happy put out by the World Economic Forum, how many of you Instacart your groceries and Uber from place to place? How many of you love to travel around utilizing Airbnbs or hotels along the way? Politicians have been looking for ways to get people out of their real estate by raising property taxes, and have even considered an unrealized capital gains tax that would ultimately force families to pay the tax on rising property values each year. And if it gets out of hand, they could be forced to sell to someone that can afford it, such as a corporation. Now, with the economy in the state it's in, we are looking at a significant real estate market crash with values already dropping. A year from now, we may see home values in many areas dropping 25 to even 40%, and a good time to implement such a tax before we begin to rebound, if in fact the government were actually wanting us to lose our properties to their corporate counterparts. The central banking system and our system of debt is a major problem in today's society. We are programmed early on not to be different, but to go to school, get in debt, get a job, and work ourselves to near death while being pushed to accumulate things we don't need to impress people we don't like, typically creating even further debt, and then retire with the years we may have left. We aren't taught about money or finances in school, as that would be like educating your drones on how to leave your system. We aren't taught what it really takes to be successful in the world, because that also requires one to think outside of the confines of society. That being said, the current money system is disastrously broken. As Russia and China seemingly work together to create a new gold standard world currency, the US dollar is fighting inflation that was caused by spending associated with a narrative that, well, I can't get into that here, and everyone else has their own opinion. However, I believe the system of banking is about to change in a big way. The CBDCs governments all over are starting to implement are centralized, programmable, and fully trackable money. There will likely end up being a digital ID or chip coming in the future at some point between now and 2030, and these IDs or physical chips will contain everything from medical data records to financial data, including CBDC wallets and other wallets. Want to buy a car? Don't have enough CBDCs? How will you get them? Will you go to a bank and borrow them? Possibly, though banks in the near future won't operate the way they do today. As with digital currencies like this, the central banks will no longer need these middlemen to handle savings and checking accounts either. However, contrary to what some believe, banks may still be needed to acquire loans for personal or businesses. Current DeFi loan platforms require you to have up to 4 times the amount you want to borrow as collateral, so therefore, only the already wealthy will be able to obtain loans for much of anything in this kind of system. However, those needing business loans and the like will likely be reviewed under new ESG guidelines for climate safety and interests. Your social score and ESG scores will most likely play a role in whether you are given the opportunity to borrow funds for a particular item or business. It's possible that banks won't even be needed to acquire loans because many of these conditions can be reviewed remotely or even by algorithms within a bank system. Failure to repay such loans could mean a complete lockup of your financial accounts, which may limit you to only enough money to cover food and water until the loan payments have been caught up, or perhaps community services to help the environment have been logged. Overall, the world as we know it today, while seemingly crazy to many in a cycle like all things, the ebb and flow of markets, politics, societal sentiment, and the like all seem to expand and contract like a beating heart. We are witnessing the infantile stages of a truly new era of society, and what role you play in it will depend on who you plan to be in it. What other elements of the past couple of years can you think of that add to the idea that we are being ultimately conditioned for an existence of solitude? United we stand, divided we fall. Until next time, crow your coins, and I'll see you soon.